For you, writing this book, welcome to the programme, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Going back and watching some of those matches, they were like new matches for you because you couldn't remember many of the details.
Yeah, I could remember obviously like picking up the trophies and maybe the shot to win the final frame or things like that. But so many tournaments and matches through, I had to go through YouTube and watch all these, and I just couldn't remember. You know, I would watch a match and go, I did that. That was quite good. Or watch another match and go, that was quite bad. So yeah, you kind of blank things out. And
never at the time you didn't, because it was all. I mean, you know, so many people were massive fans because it was all on telly, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
You never watched it back at the time.
No, never. There was the only time in the beginning I couldn't beat Steve Davis in the beginning. He was my nemesis. He dominated the sport, and he was this. I held him up here, and my manager had this idea to sort of watch videos of my matches with Steve Davis to try and learn what I was doing wrong, why I couldn't beat this guy.
Yeah.
And it helped because I'm not a way to beat him, but I just thought, well, he actually is human. He does miss. In my mind, I thought he never misses.
Wow.
And so that was the only time through my career I used watching snooker to help me.
The book's also really interesting on your relationship with another snooker great, Alex Higgins, who you idolised, who was really nice to you at the start of your career. But tell us about how the relationship changed when you became a bit more of a competitor.
I know. Well, I turned professional at 16, and every tournament I went to, Alex would summon me over, come and practice. So he must have seen something in me. I mean, he hated my cue. He used to say it's only good for holding up tomatoes. You know, the first thing we do, we roll the cue and see what he said. No, that's no good. But yeah, he was great. But when I started winning, I became the enemy. Steve Davis was his enemy, and then when I started winning regularly, I became the enemy. And so our relationship, friendship-wise, sort of deteriorated a bit. But you know, near the very end, you know, I met him again, and he was great.
Was that the way he had to deal with his opponents? Do you think that's what it was?
Alex always had that kind of chip in his shoulder with players that he deemed as maybe not the people's champions, the sort of natural players like himself, Jimmy, people like that. He's seen us as more sort of robotic and you know, just winning all the time. Although, you know, he must have seen something in me to want to practice me in the beginning.
And this cue, Louise mentioned your magic cue. So it cost you 40 quid, and you first got it when you were
14.
14,
yeah.
And for example, a top cue now might set somebody back how much money?
Well, I mean, all the cues now are handmade by specialists. So if a professional goes and gets a cue, it's about 500–600 quid.
Yeah.
So I just like the design of this. I got it in a snooker club I used to play in Dunfermline. I thought I liked the way that the paint design, and that was it. It was like 40 quid, but it was a rubbish cue, and when it got damaged, that's the reason it was so hard to replace, because all the cues then were so good.
And you won 70 tournaments with this cue, and then you're on a flight back from Thailand, and you had to put it in the hold because you couldn't carry hand luggage like that anymore because of 9/11. And then at what stage do you hear that this magic cue that you've done so well with has been broken?
I lived in Scotland, so flying from Thailand, we had to come via Heathrow. So yeah, I land in Heathrow, get off the plane, and someone meets me and he says, "Mr. Hendry, there's been some damage to parts of your luggage." So right away, I'm thinking it's the cue. So I had to wait. That flight, that journey to Scotland seemed in ages, and yeah, got to waiting for the bags to come out in the carousel. Now it was a one-piece cue, so you know, however long it was, just a long case, but it came out and it was just like that. It was just snapped. And my first thought, that's it. I mean, I kind of laughed, but I thought, that's it. My career's over.
But and it really did affect you, did it?
Very much so. I mean, I got the cue maker. John Paris, who's kind of the cue maker to all most of the top players. He had the measurements, so he made 3 cues that were the exact measurements of mine, but they were such good quality. I mean, mine was bent. It was like, you know,
so there was something about
it. Just felt different. But I could start to play shots that I couldn't play before because they were much stronger bits of wood. But, I decided to pick one and go with it and throw the other 2 away.
And you talked a bit about the mental game earlier on with Alex Higgins and the way he approached things. And we were mentioning earlier as well about talking about golf, and sometimes players in golf, we talk about the yips.
Yes.
And you had that in snooker. What was that like? Because a relatively easy shot for someone of your ability started to become really difficult for you to actually think about getting it in the pocket. Yeah,
it started about as long as 10–12 years before I actually retired. The odd shot I wouldn't be able to play properly. I would decelerate. You know, like if in golf, if you decelerate in a putt, you don't hit it properly.
Yeah.
So you get that feeling in your cueing arm that you can't just go through the cue ball. So I thought, this doesn't feel good. And then, but the problem is, as it gets worse, you start to avoid playing certain shots. So near the end, there was like so many shots. I mean, the year I retired, I made a 147 against Stuart Bingham. There's 36 pots in a 147. I was only happy with about 5 or 6 of them. The rest of them were just pure determination to make it. I just didn't hit them properly.
I'd love to be happy with the rubbish 147.
It's lovely to see you. Thank you very much. Stephen Hendry's book is called Me and the Table, My Autobiography.
And there's so much in there about the success and the many tournaments won as well. Thank you for coming in this morning. John and Naga.